Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Cryptic Conversations. I'm your host, Tunes from the Crypt, and we have another very special episode in store today. Today's guest is a man named Steve Forchetti. He's also known as the Namaste Nomad. He is a true visionary in the realm of healing and personal transformation. Steve's extraordinary journey has taken him across the globe, where he has dedicated himself to learning, helping, and empowering countless souls through the power of healing. And with over a decade of profound exploration and study, Steve's expertise spans from healing arts, shamanism, alchemy, to hermetics. In 2011, his Reiki journey began, propelling him towards the world of energy healing and spiritual awakening. A testament to his commitment, he became an ordained minister with the Universal Life Church Monastery in 2013, solidifying his mission to support individuals on their unique spiritual paths. Throughout the years, Steve's thirst for knowledge has led him to delve into various transformative practices, including transcendental meditation, yoga, and the mystical Kabbalah. As a Reiki master, life activation practitioner, and certified meditation coach, he empowers others to tap into their inner wisdom and embrace profound self discovery. Today, we have the privilege of delving into Steve's journey, and I'm extremely excited to have him share his insights into alternative healing and the transformative power of addressing the mind, body, and soul as one harmonious entity. Welcome, Steve Forchetti.
Thank you very much. I need you to introduce me everywhere I go. That's fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you. So yeah, we can dive right in. I'm really excited to have you share your insights with the audience. So yeah, talk to me about your early life. Where did you grow up? Where'd you go to school, and what your family was like?
Sure. So I grew up in Philadelphia originally. I've kind of traveled all throughout the country throughout my life as an adult now, but originally from Philadelphia.
Hmm,
I went to school in a small town in the Philly metro area, about 45 minutes outside the city, and I went to college at Penn State.
nice.
I originally went for communications, and just life took me in a different direction. Shortly after I graduated, I kind of fell into something different. While I was in
Hmm,
college, I had my spiritual awakening, and I kind of felt this pull, like I don't really like what I'm doing right now. I think I need to do something different. But I've
hmm,
already spent 3.5 years. Might as well finish this.
yeah.
Uh, I still use communication as far as being able to talk to people, just not in the
Nice.
film, radio, TV way.
Okay.
Unless you count podcasts, of course.
Yeah, I'm actually a communication major myself. Got my associate's degree in communication, then transferred and got my degree in public relations. So I can relate to you on that. So yeah, I mean, you mentioned briefly. So take us back to the beginning of your spiritual journey and what that spiritual awakening consisted of. And how you discovered your passion for spiritual exploration.
Yeah, so strangely enough, my spiritual journey began by taking me completely away from spirituality through like a couple years of atheism and then back into
Uh,
spirituality. When I in 2010, I took LSD for the first time and had this crazy, crazy experience where I saw everything from like the Big Bang until the end of time,
oh
and
wow.
my vision slowed down, and I saw my entire birth from like my entire life from conception to death, and I just saw like these little things, and just little like snippets of everything. And now when I have deja vu to this day, it's like I remember, holy shit, like I've seen this before. Sorry, am I allowed to curse?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Um, so basically from there I started delving into like what did I just watch, like what did I just see, like there's more to this reality than what I saw, than
Yep.
what I thought. And I started watching a bunch of documentaries, and I saw a bunch of things back then. The first one was this movie called Zeitgeist. It's on
Mm,
YouTube, and they had this whole thing in the beginning about how all the different religions, all their myths are all kind of the same. Like the Jesus story is similar to myth or similar to Krishna, and I'm like, wait a second, this is all bullshit. That was just where my brain was. It took me down this path of like getting very, very into science, very away from spirituality, and then something just changed after a couple years, and it's like the same thing that brought me in, brought me out of that, and brought me back. And I was like, oh wait, okay, so God's the one that's been showing me this the whole time. Um, so it really, in the beginning, it was just a lot of experimentation with psychedelics, but having these profound experiences every single time. And I would tell other free people, my friends, family, about like what I saw and everything, and I'd always get the
hmm
same response, like I've never seen anything like that. So I always just kind of like
Yeah.
wanted to learn more about the mysteries of what is this that's happening here. And I did a bunch of research online and found that there were other things outside of psychedelics to give you a more sustainable path, because LSD is great as long as you don't abuse it. Mushrooms, great. Ayahuasca, great. But they're just tools.
Yeah.
I mean, ancient yogis and ancient Buddhists didn't use these things. If they did, maybe it was one time in their entire life. That's
Oh
why it's
wow.
called sacred medicine.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so what do they do to sustain that feeling, to sustain that view of reality? They would do meditation every day, which, I mean, just like going to the gym versus taking a pill for weight loss. I mean, going to the gym is harder work, but it's going to be more sustainable than taking a pill. So
Hmm.
similarly, meditation would be going to the gym versus taking a pill,
Oh, okay.
putting a tab under your
Yeah.
tongue. It's the same exact thing.
Hmm.
So as time went on, I started to develop other different disciplines and stepping away from plant medicine, stepping away from psychedelics into pure spirituality.
Nice. I love it. Yeah, I can definitely relate to you. Um, I was looking at all of your information, and basically your whole premise is right is helping people navigate their spiritual awakening, right? So I'm hoping maybe I can pick your brain a little bit and help me with navigating my spiritual awakening because let's see, I recently turned 30, and throughout my 20s, it was a lot of a lot of partying and a lot of being selfish and hedonistic and a lot of alcohol, different drugs, and
Yeah.
it was just a whole mess, and I'm what almost 2 years sober now. And first I knew I needed to work on myself, man. Like there's a reason why I was doing all this drinking, doing all this partying. So I stepped away from everyone and everything, and I just spent some time alone. Like after the pandemic, I saw a couple of hypnotherapists, and I really started to notice some things changing in my mindset. Then that led me to ayahuasca, and that just happened 2 months ago, and
Very cool.
that was the most profound experience of my life, man. I'm just
I hope.
yeah, I've been saying it on every episode. Like, oh, I'm a completely different person now, but I really am, man. Like I every day now I go, there's a nice little trail over here and I go in nature. I put my bare feet in the ground. I never used to do this stuff, And so now it's like I go in nature, I ground myself, I'm always talking to God, whatever God is. Just always expressing gratitude. And I don't know, man. It's just I'm completely changed and it's like it's great, but sometimes it's like, yeah, it's like I don't know. I guess I could use a little help navigating this newfound perspective and everything.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're on the right path. My experience with ayahuasca is that you're still in what we call the afterglow. So
Uh,
this is your training period to be able to find practices that sustain you
mhm.
in that feeling. So the fact that you're doing those things is great. It's a great way to work that muscle, basically.
Yeah.
You've been shown a lot of information about your own personal journey very, very quickly. It's a massive, massive download, and it's like if you're a computer and you take in like a gigantic, like half a terabyte download, you have to sort through all that information. You don't have a lot
Hmm.
of. It's like taking in that download, that information, and then trying to figure out how to sort through. Well, where do you start? What do you do? So the fact that you have a practice is good.
Hmm.
Grounding, fantastic. You're literally grounding that information from your crown all the way through you into the earth.
Hmm.
Um, one thing I would say is journal. I mean, it's good to have like
Hmm.
a record of the things you experienced. I happen to be very lucky. I'm gifted with a very good long-term memory. So a lot of the things I've seen, I could tell you like it was yesterday.
Oh wow.
But not everybody has that though.
Hmm.
But so yeah, I mean, any questions you have, I might not have the answers, but I'll definitely do my best. And worst case, I can always think of something that could send you down in the next rabbit
Yeah.
hole.
I guess, the first question I would have for you just to see what your answer is like, what is God to you? What do you see God as?
Yeah. So there's a couple different layers to that question. So there's the external God and then there's the internal God also. So if you're familiar with the phrase, well, everyone knows or most people know the word Om, like you chant Om, but the
Yeah.
full phrase is Om Mani Padme Hum, which is nice.
Yeah.
So the full phrase is Om Mani Padme Hum, which is Sanskrit for praise be to the jewel in the lotus, which is still a very cryptic phrase. But what it means is the jewel in the lotus is that divine spark that exists within every one of us. So when you say praise be to the jewel in the lotus, it's like saying the spark of God within me honors and recognizes that you are also a spark of God. So I recognize the divinity within myself, and that divinity recognizes that you are also divine.
Yeah.
So just as a background, I studied a lot of different religions, world religions, but I grew up Catholic. So in the Christian church or the Catholic church, they always say you are a child of God. So you can extrapolate from that that if you are a child of God, that would mean that you are also God yourself. You're not God the Father because that's the external God, the God that created this earth. But
Yeah.
you are a almost like Hercules, like a demigod. You are a
Yeah.
God trapped in a physical body.
Hmm.
So that's when they say with the law of attraction, we create the world around us. It's because you are a creator God creating your world. So you get to make choices through free will of what you want to bring into your reality. Do you want to create light or do you want to bring more darkness to the world?
Yeah.
So God isn't as above, so below, which is one of the principles of Hermetics. God isn't as above, so below concept. It's the one that's outside of our 3D physical understanding of reality, and then there's the God within us.
Yeah. Man, this is deep stuff. Okay.
First question.
Yeah. All right. So, throughout your travels, what are some of the most profound experiences that you've had while helping and learning from people across different cultures and backgrounds?
So I'd say probably, well, as far as helping people, huh? So I've traveled up and down the East Coast. I've done energy work in Charlotte, North Carolina, Miami, Sedona, Ithaca, New York, Philly, and now I'm
Wow.
in
Okay.
Illinois in the Midwest. So I mean,
Nice.
as far as being able to help people, just really one of the beautiful things, and it goes back to my background in communications. It's being able to communicate with everybody and just being able to connect with people because I've seen so much of the world and studied a lot of different cultures and different things like that. I'm able to have a conversation with just about anybody about anything.
Yeah.
So I mean that's it's a good framework to have for any sort of experience in general. Now, as far as like being profound, I study with an organization called the Modern Mystery School International, and I've been with them since 2015. And it's one of those things that my spiritual awakening just kind of naturally progressed me to that point of looking into the concept of mystery schools or like the Masons and things like
Oh,
that.
yeah.
And I didn't like the sound of the Masons from what I was seeing in my conspiracy research, and
Yeah.
so I decided to go a different way. And I joined the mystery school, and that's where I got introduced to a lot of different metaphysical concepts. That some of them I was kind of familiar with, but it was nice to have good affirmation from somebody.
Mm.
And then I fell away for a little bit. I got into a toxic relationship with somebody that kind of just mocked the whole thing and said it was like going to magic camp. So I fell
Yeah.
away for a while, and then shortly before the pandemic, I had a really bad spine injury. That's a long story, but right before the spine injury is when I found ayahuasca, and ayahuasca picked up where the LSD trip from 2010 left off. Basically, it was like, here's
Mm.
chapter two. Um, and without getting into all the nitty gritty of that experience for this explanation here, I'm
Yeah.
still to this day convinced that I made aliens that day. But they showed me more things going forward about how I was going to be of service to humanity. So that's as far as my own experience. That was the most profound thing to me, was what I believe to be meeting aliens and being shown how I will help the world. As far as being of service to others, after that experience, once I recovered from the spine injury, I got back in touch with my teacher from the mystery school. We call them guides. The person who initiates you is your guide.
Yeah.
I got in touch with her and said, "Hey, so like, this is what happened. What are my next steps?" And she's told me to take these prerequisites: is Sacred Geometry 1, Astral Travel, Journeys of the Spirit, and the 12 Races of Earth. And those are your prerequisites for what's called
Wow.
Healers Academy. So when you go to Healers Academy, you learn how to do what's called a life activation. And a life activation is it's a style of energy work. It's like a shamanic activation, basically, that takes your DNA, your 12 strands of physical DNA, your 12 strands of spiritual DNA, and kind of fuses them together and then lights you up. It's like if your body is a circuit breaker, it's turning on all the lights and everything just boom gets shut on. Um, Now, what that does is it taps you into your divine blueprint, whatever that may be. It's different for every individual. So my journey versus yours versus anybody listening to this, I couldn't tell you exactly what would happen, but it will change your life. Now, it may be subtle shifts, it may be overnight change. Again, it's different for everybody. For me, what happened was I worked for AT&T at the time, and I went from having no sales experience outside of maybe selling some weed in college to being like one of the top salespeople in my region for 3.5 years in a row. Um, then I finally dropped into number six. But so I mean, for me, it was just tapping back into that communication, really like a big heart and throat chakra awakening,
Mm.
basically allowing me to do sales, but not from like a sleazy space. And because I
Yeah.
was like so honest,
Yeah.
people wanted to come back to me, and I just consistently, I was about an hour outside the city at that point, but I was outdoing people that were in the city for sales.
Oh,
With
wow.
less traffic, just I had people coming from all over the place.
Yeah.
Um, anyways, so that's the life activation. So I started becoming a life activation practitioner when I was after the spine injury, backpedaling a little bit. I moved in with the people who were running the ayahuasca retreat, and I became like the resident Reiki master on staff. And then I went to Healers Academy and started doing life activations to people that would come for ayahuasca. So you come for the plant medicine, we would serve ayahuasca, hape, sananga,
Yeah.
kambo, different things like that. Um, and then just in between night one, night two of ceremony, I would offer my services. And some people would bite, some people didn't, but
Hmm.
that's how it goes. So I just help people and then keep in touch with people. And you said you checked out my website. I mean, some of the people that you saw, the people from all over the world. Those are people that came to ceremony that I was helping.
Mm. Okay.
Um, So just doing that, and then eventually that got to be too taxing for the body. So I moved out of the facility and moved in with my now ex girlfriend. But we traveled up and down the East Coast and went around the country, just
Hmm.
helping people out. When that relationship ended, I moved to the Midwest. There was a short term job opportunity at a place called the Lost River Hostel in
Hmm.
southern Indiana. And that was supposed to be just a short term opportunity to kind of clear my head, see some new places, and meet new people. And now I live in the Midwest. So as far as like the profundity of it, it's really just my journey has taken me all over the place. While I studied Kabbalah, I was moving across the country.
Hmm.
And now with the mystery school, I've traveled to London twice in the last year, about to be three times in October, just to take different classes on what's called the Ritual Master Path. It's like the next step after becoming a life activation practitioner.
Hmm.
Ritual Master Path is all about using just really just using the power of the mind and little rituals and things like that just to like help empower yourself to break through it's like a very intensive shadow work basically without
Mm,
I
okay.
can only say so much about it, but it's like in the last year, it's slightly over a year now, I've given up all forms of nicotine, forms of alcohol, cannabis, all plant medicines, things like that, which has been like a way to bring up like old wounds, or kind of just like give me the power to address those old wounds without having vices to lean on and things like that.
Yeah.
So my end goal eventually is to become a healer and a teacher and a guide with the mystery school. And in order to do that, I feel like I need to face my own shadow so I can help other
Yeah.
people do that.
Hmm.
So I like being of service to people and helping them now. And the more that I progress myself, the more I can help other people. Because in
Hmm.
general, whether it's me or anybody else, you can't share what you don't have. And if you don't have a good wrangle or a good handle on your own shadows, how can you help
Yep.
other people with their shadows?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Taking it back for a second there, yeah, at the ayahuasca retreat on the second day, I did some, how do you say it? Ape? Ape?
There's two. You can say it HAPE or
Yeah.
RAPE. I prefer to
Yeah.
not say it the second way. It's
Yeah.
either Hape or Rape, but I prefer
Yeah.
Hape.
Yeah. Yeah. That was intense, man. Like, oh, I was crying, and I was like laid out in the grass.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd like to ask you, so you kind of you said you mentioned that you saw aliens, so can you talk about that a little bit more, like what that experience was like?
Yeah. So as far as a little background for that, right before my ayahuasca ceremonies, when I became certified in transcendental meditation, this was 2019, like April, May. The ceremony was in May. I became certified in April. Um, and I was in the first night of ceremony, it was all about like being able to heal relationships in my life and things that had kind of gone off path and how to bring things back. But I never
Hmm.
actually had like a purge or anything like that, except for maybe yawning or
Mm.
sneezing, things like that.
Oh, I purged
Um,
a lot.
but I didn't end up purging until like a month later. It
Mm.
was crazy. But I didn't purge my first ceremony. So the second night, going through the journey, and the ayahuasquero, the server, excuse me, she was singing this one song. I don't remember the name of it now, but it was like one of her own Icaro that she made
Yeah.
for the ceremony. And something in the room changed. Like the vibe, just like it went from like wavy to just flat, and you could feel that the energy had shifted. Maybe it was just
Yeah.
me.
No,
But
yeah.
so I was sitting on my blanket in my little mat thing, and I just went into like a meditation. I was like, something weird's happening. I'm gonna close my eyes and see what happens. And all of a sudden, like things started glimmering, shimmering, and in a nutshell, I started being taken through this series of Alex Gray paintings. It was like if you're
Mm.
familiar with the artist Alex Gray, he's got really
Mm.
really intense psychedelic, definitely worth looking into. Really cool psychedelic paintings, and every painting became a math problem, and I had to solve this math problem by doing energy work. It sounds very strange, but you've
Mm.
been on the medicine, so things don't work in a linear way. So
Yeah.
I'd like I draw power symbols from Reiki, or I draw like a heptagram, which is a seven-pointed star, with my fingers and stuff in my mind, and they would start like I draw these symbols that I was aware of, and then they would transform into numbers. The numbers would condense the equation, and then it would answer the question, and then boom, the painting would open like a door, and I move into another chamber. And then I do it again, boom, boom, boom. I go through these chambers, and finally I ended up in my favorite painting by Alex. It's like this guy is laying on a table with his arms crossed like a sarcophagus, and he's just in this tube of thousands of eyes. And and this voice said to me, it said, uh, "You have all the tools that you need to transcend this problem. Very few, or many people get here, but few know how to transcend it. Transcend." And I heard it three times, and I was like, "Okay, well that's weird. Do they mean do transcendental meditation?" So I started repeating my mantra in my head, the one that you
Okay.
get from your teacher, and all of a sudden the eyeballs went from like this, like mine, like just normal eyes, to super wide open, and then all of the
Oh
eyes
my
shattered
God.
like glass. The eyes shattered like glass, and I was inside the throne room of the Temple of Giza. And I'm like, what the
Are you
fuck?
serious?
Oh
Oh
yeah,
my
dude.
God.
So I'm looking around this room, and it looks like what you'd imagine, like a stone room with jewels and stuff and hieroglyphics on the wall. And about like 30 feet from me off to the right is Anubis, and about 70 feet off to the left of me is a unicorn. And from far away, I just see the unicorn has like silvery hair, and it's got black fur with stuff moving on it. And I couldn't tell what it was at first. But I go over to Anubis, and so far everything in my ayahuasca journey, night one and night two up to this point, has been some test. Even me getting to the ceremony was some crazy test, like from the universe. Um, so Anubis is he doesn't speak to me with his mouth; he speaks to me telepathically, and we're having a conversation. And he said, "Well, we've been waiting for you. It's been a long time. Do you remember the first time we met?" And I was like, "Are you talking about years ago, like 2010?" He goes, "Yes." He goes, okay, so like, what are you waiting for me for? He goes, I'm not the one that can explain it, but you have to consent to die so you can go forward. And I was like, what? Consent to die? And he's like, that's just the rules of the game. And I had recently read a poem by Andy Weir. He's the producer of the movie The Martian, or he wrote the book, and it was called The Egg. Also, a very cool short story. It's very, very short.
Yeah.
Um, and I remembered a line from this poem is where a guy had actually died, and he's talking to God in this poem. So this guy now Anubis is saying to me that you have to die, and I remembered, okay, this is a test. I said, okay, so what about my family? What about my friends? And he goes, that's all I needed to hear. We'll bring you back. Do you consent? And I said, yeah, sure. And so he takes his staff that's next to him, and he stabs me in the chest with it. And if you're familiar with Harry Potter at all, in the fifth one, when he's going into the pensive, he like takes his wand and pulls a memory out of his head. It looks like a little white wisp.
Uh-huh.
He takes my soul out of my chest like that and pulls it out, and then snaps his staff, boom, and I rematerialize as my spirit, and I hear my body behind me crumple. I'm like, that's what the
Oh
I'm just
my
like I'm
God.
processing all of this as it's going on. So he walks me over to the unicorn, and I notice it, and I get closer. So again, it's got silver hair, silver tail, silver mane, and a little like a really cool horn. It's like an iridescent color, and I so again his fur is black, and there's little things moving on it. Well, as I get closer, I realize that the things moving are little galaxies. So like the universe is within this unicorn, and it's just moving. And from my understanding, unicorns are like interdimensional travelers as far as being magical creatures that can travel
Mm.
between dimensions. Um, I could be wrong on that, obviously, but this is just what I've come to read. Um,
Mm.
I have to give that disclaimer. I've only
Yeah.
ever met a unicorn on ayahuasca. Um, so I get on the back of the unicorn, and Anubis goes like Godspeed or something along those lines. And
Mm.
the unicorn, I grab hold of its neck, and it just boom, it just takes off. And as it takes off, the four walls of the pyramid, like they're leaning in on each other. They open up like a lotus, like a flower, and we start spiraling up out of the pyramid up into the sky. We're going up, 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 and then all of a sudden, these dark clouds appear in the sky above us, and like they formulate and then they separate in this like lightning pattern, and it's like a what you'd imagine like an old school iTunes visualizer to look like just comes out, and that's
Mm.
what the hole looks like, and this crazy serpent head comes down, and as we're spiraling up, the serpent's spiraling down, and we meet, and as we meet, the serpent opens its mouth and swallows us whole. And now we're just galloping up this thing's tongue down its like esophagus and through its digestive system. And we get all the way through the serpent, and it looked like a wormhole, like what you'd imagine a wormhole to
Yeah.
look like. As I'm getting to what I guess would be the tail, it opens up and it's a second head on the other side, and we come out of the other side of the head, and we're in this like ship, or like this harbor bay, and everything looks like gunmetal gray metal with little like patterns like sigils and things like that carved into the metal.
Yeah.
And there's this like etheric blue energy coming out like a couple inches from that. It's like the sigils and the markings and stuff are generating this energy. So I'm there, and I'm greeted by one person, and it's my spirit guide, basically my main numero uno spirit guide, who I later on learned their name was Omega. Um, she looks kind of like Mystique from X Men, like a blue face. If you mix Mystique with X Men with Cortana from Halo, it's kind of like
Okay.
that, like a blue
Uh-huh.
lattice person.
Mm.
Um, and she was just talking to me and like saying like, "Hey, buddy, good to see you again." And she like guided me through the ship and took me to this table, this room. Like took me through. We're just flying through super fast. We get to this operating table, and she's like, "Hey, we got to do this quick." So she lays me down in these things that there's a YouTuber that I found years ago called 434, and he introduced me to the term machine elves. And
Mm.
so what these things, I call them machine elves. I don't know what they're actually called. They came up and started like being little nurse practitioners operating on me. And one of them is a little bit taller, comes with takes this tri-braid cord. It's like three braids put together,
Yeah.
and plugs it into my third eye. And immediately I just start getting this insane download. It was one of them was blue, one of them was white, and one of them was like a mix of the two. Um, so it starts just like pumping me with all of this information, and that's when the story of LSD from 2010 picks up, and boom, and now I see the future, and now I'm seeing all this stuff happen. Um, and it's like saying that basically they told me this is the year before COVID happened. They said that the world is about to enter a very crazy period, and the world's going to seem like it's getting darker, but really what's happening is that light is coming to Earth at a much faster pace. So with
Uh,
the light is just shining it, it's illuminating the darkness that's already
yeah.
on Earth, just making it so that we can see it, so that we can get rid of it. So even
Wow.
though right now the world seems like it's getting crazier, this stuff's
Yeah.
already been going on for years. We're just becoming more
Yeah.
willing to it.
Yeah.
Um, so then they took me out of there. Once everything was done, there's way too much to get into right now
Yeah.
for what they were saying, but like they showed me all this shit and how I'm going to be like, they introduced me to the topic of the word light worker and showed me what it means to be a light worker and said that a lot of work has to be done before you can be one. But that's my purpose on life is to be a
Yeah.
light worker. Um, so then they kind of threw me down, like they picked me up by my shirt and my pants and threw me down this hallway. And I started seeing little snapshots of things, like little screens that pop up of different things that were going to happen. And still, same thing as before back in 2010. When I have deja vu, I'm like, okay, everything's cool. Like I'm still on that path. Even when it feels like dark and stuff,
Hmm.
all of a sudden I have deja vu and it's like, okay, okay, cool. I'm protected. Everything's good.
Wow.
That's not to say that bad things haven't happened, but it's just a
Uh-huh.
reminder like, okay, I'm still on this path. And as I'm getting close to the end, there's this red blinking light and it's just going off, going off, going off. And they said, well, we are not allowed to interfere in this, but we need you. We need someone from the human realm to push this button and begin what's about to happen. So, okay, so I take my finger and push the button. As soon as I push the button, boom, I snap back into my body. I'm back in ceremony again. And I
Oh,
just had this
wow.
crazy rush, like this crazy, all of a sudden lightning went off outside the room that we were in. It was at an Airbnb. And all of a sudden this crazy rush comes in through my crown, goes through my hands, and I didn't know what to do with it. So I just kind of like smacked down on my blanket that was there. And when I smacked down on the ground, boom, another thunder goes off outside. And meanwhile, all the people in ceremony that weren't like out and about in the universe were dancing around the altar. They had this like little candles and stuff. They're dancing around
Yeah.
the altar, just having a good time at a party. I realized many years later, like a year or two ago, that they were doing this like thing with their hands. They were summoning me back down. It's like they whether they realized it or not, they were pulling me back down through the ether back into my body. Um, so then we go outside at the end of ceremony. I'm like brain melted. I go into the bathroom and I go to take a piss, and there's a little tea light candle on top of the toilet. And I go to the bathroom, and they say don't look in the mirror, and I learned exactly why. Now they forgot to put something to cover the mirror that day, but I look in the mirror and I'm washing my hands, and half of my face is illuminated. This side of my face is illuminated, the other side is just shadow. And when I say shadow, I don't mean like it's shrouded. It's like flowing black shadow, like wisps, and my eye is just red. And it was like a crazy lesson on duality about how we all
Yeah.
have light and dark within us.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm just now I get stuck looking at the window at the mirror for 10 minutes. I come back out and it turns out everybody has left the house to go out to this fire pit and somebody's waiting for me. She's like, hey, like we're out at the fire pit. We realized you weren't there, so you want me to like, can I wait for you or can I get you want to come with me? Now this girl, her name is Ashley, but everybody called her Star. And she's like, and I realized, wow, I'm being guided by a star right now. This shit's crazy. So
Yeah.
I follow her out to the fire pit, and then we're sitting around the fires doing like a little post ceremony integration thing. And all of a sudden, this one dude goes, holy shit, guys, look up there. Now there's like 20, 25 people, somewhere in that, right? Like 22, 23 people in ceremony. This guy goes, holy shit, guys, look up there. And he points up to the sky, and there's these two dots in the sky, and they look kind of like airplanes because they're like twinkling, but you can tell that they're not airplanes, and they're too close to be stars. Now the one
Hmm.
on the bottom here, so for those of you who are just listening, it's like one in the top left corner of a square, one in the bottom right corner of the square. The one in the bottom right corner of the square goes up, down, left, right, and then in a full circle, and then the two of them together take the fabric of the night sky like this and go. They bend the night sky and then come back and then boom, shoot off in two different directions. So I'm still to this day convinced, and I have several witnesses that may or may not believe what they saw, but they all saw that there were ships in the sky, and I to this day believe that I was on one of them.
Jesus, man. I
So,
think, dude, this is like the most intense ayahuasca trip experience I've ever heard, and it's so amazing. And it's like, I know a lot of people are going to be listening, especially people who aren't into this stuff and they don't know about ayahuasca. They're going to be like, man, what is this guy talking about? You know, but it's like at the core of it, it's like that happened. That happened to you, right? What is
yeah.
that? You know what I mean? It happened. So what is that? Whether you believe it or not, like it happened. So like what is that? You know? So
And here's the kicker. They told me all the things they were showing me when I was floating towards that button. They said, how did they phrase it? It was, life can always be like this, but in order for you to appreciate it fully, you'll have to go through hell first. And I was like, what? Well, a month and a half later, I had my spine injury, and I was paralyzed for a couple months and had to learn how to walk again at the age of 29.
oh wow.
So, I mean, I had to go through hell. I had to rebuild my spine. I was in that bad relationship, and I had metaphorically become spineless. So, physical disease begins as mental disease, right? So, my mental disease of being codependent and spineless, my relationship manifested as me physically being spineless. I had to learn from
Yeah.
the ground up how to be a person.
Wow. Yeah. You know, my experience is not as I thought mine was intense, but it's not on that level, but definitely some crazy things happened for me. You know, I had an experience of dying and I had to surrender and I just let the shaman like he was orchestrating the vibration of and the energy of the room. Him combined with all of the native indigenous musicians, the songs I was singing, it was just I felt like it was just raising the vibration, and it got so intense. I was just seeing these intense colors and patterns, and I was getting messages that were communicated telepathically. I don't know if it was my own voice or but I was getting messages and but yeah, basically it's like I had to surrender. Like I was in this comfortable position with my fingers locked and that was my comfort position and I just had to like slowly let go of my fingers and it literally put me into the fetal position and I was laying on my mat in the fetal position and as all this is happening and the colors and the patterns and I knew that I was dying. It was like I was going back into the womb, you know, and it was like I had to surrender and just let it go. And then I had that experience of dying and I felt my consciousness. It was still there, but it was just blank. It was just black. And I knew that I died. And I was like, oh shit, like, oh, I just died. Like what's next? And then I slowly, it was like the way I would describe it, it was like, you know, those old TVs when you turn it on or off, it's like slow to turn off. And then it's like rebooting. Like it was like, and
Yeah.
it was like, and then I was back alive, and I was just like so thankful to be alive. Like, you know, they say that, you know, like, yeah, you need to go through that death to appreciate life. And that, like, that happened to me, and like so many other crazy things. And there was the one lady that I saw throughout the weekend of the retreat. She was the quietest girl at the retreat. She didn't say a word, but when you looked at her, you just knew, like, wow, she's a nice woman. She's a nice girl. And I would describe her as like a light worker or something. I don't know. And like she was just I remember after the night one, we were all sitting around the fire on day two talking about our experiences. And I see her just kind of like walk over and she sits with us. And I'm like, oh, I'm finally gonna hear her talk. And once again, she just sat there quiet, didn't say a word. And one of the guys even tried to get her in the conversation. She didn't say a word. She just kind of like smiled or something, and then she just walked away. She was this very mystical, magical girl. I don't know. Anyways, and then on the second night, she literally the way I would describe it, I haven't told this story or talked about it, but the way I would describe it, it was like grandmother spirit ayahuasca channeled through her. And I was looking staring at the fire and she was up there in front of the fire with this such a sad emotional look on her face. She felt all of the pain in the room of all of us and she was doing this energy work with her hands and she was just like and she was like touching her tapping on her stomach and stuff and she was just like healing the whole room. She would face one way and then the other way and she changed clothes too. She was in a white dress all of a sudden. I don't know, man. It was crazy. So yeah,
That's pretty great. That's a
Iowa
really cool story.
ayahuasca, man. You know,
Yeah.
um, okay,
It taps into something primal, something you didn't know you had within you. And like as I moved into the facility, well, months later, I became a facilitator. So I wasn't the one serving the medicine, but I was serving like hot and other things like that, and just kind of help picking up the purge buckets, getting people to and from the bathroom and stuff. And it's the same thing. Like even when you're just microdosing for ceremony, like you tap into this primal thing that you don't understand how it works or why it works. It just works, and it's like
yeah,
I've been here before. I've done this before. I already know what to do. It's
yeah,
tapping into your body's sacred innate intelligence to know what it is that you have to do.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would definitely say, I don't know if you can relate, like my whole life growing up as a kid, just being very sensitive and always feeling like different than other people and very psychic almost and intuitive and always noticing synchronicities. It was like it just, I don't know. I felt like synchronicities led me to that event. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Have you noticed a lot of synchronicities in your life?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't tell you every single thing like from the first time I ever noticed it, but I mean, again, I have a very good memory and things like that. So like I remember as far back as like being just a little kid. I was my first memory had to have been before I was 1.5 years old because it was of a house that we moved out of when I turned two. But I mean, I've had just like this crazy recollection, which really helps as far as like being able to create community space and everything like that, and just like generate relationships, cultivate things as far as healing is concerned. But like, I've always just felt like, even though I didn't quite jive with the message of the church and stuff all the time, I believed that there was something out there watching over me.
Yeah.
And I always felt I've never been clairvoyant as far as being able to see like entities sober, but I've always been able to like see energy in the sense of like seeing like around everybody that I encounter, I see 2 or 3 inches above their shoulders and their head and stuff like an outline, like the etheric body, not
Oh,
necessarily the
wow.
complete aura and stuff like that. But I've always just kind of I believed in it, and then people told me that it wasn't real, so I kind of shut off for a while, and then it turned back on later on in life. So, and then one of the first things that after that first LSD experience that kicked off my true awakening and not just like what the hell did I just see was seeing 1111 and all the numbers things like that,
Yeah.
all the repeating numbers. So excuse me, I reached out to my mom and basically I was telling her like because I knew that she was very open minded. She might not understand the acid thing, but she might understand numbers. So I was telling her, okay, I'm seeing all these numbers 1111, 111, 222, all these things. Like, do you know anything about this? And she's like, I'm not quite sure, but there's a lady who owns like a little holistic shop nearby where I work, and maybe she'll figure something out. So we went and like we went and checked out her shop, and she happened to be having a class on numerology, and I was like, okay,
Mm,
that's weird. So I go for this numerology class. It was like a week later, she's telling us all about the numbers, and I learned a very basic understanding of what the main ones are, not like specific, like if you see like 1018 or 128, whatever numbers are specific to you. She didn't go into
mm,
that, but the main ones. So at the end of the class, she comes by and she gives everybody like a parting gift. She's like, okay, well, here's this crystal. It was angel light. It's like a light blue crystal. It was my first ever crystal. And she's like, so I just want to give this to everybody. It's just a little sign you carry in your pocket, and it's a way of like tethering your guardian angels to be around you. And if you start to feel nervous, you can just rub it, charge it in the full moon, rinse it under cold water, stuff like that. And I was like, okay, that's really cool, but like, what the fuck are crystals? So I started looking into classes about crystals, and then crystals
mm.
led to just the
Oh,
concept
yeah.
of energy and stuff. So then I
Yeah.
looked into Reiki. I took Reiki 1, and it just kind
Yep.
of cascaded from there.
Yep.
Then I started getting into reading, and one book that it's very dry in the first third, but if you can get through the first third of it, the rest of it is fire. Is called the Synchronicity Key by David Wilcock, and it has
Mm,
completely changed like my entire perception of time. Like most people think of time as past, present, future
yeah.
being linear. It
Yeah.
operates in cycles, and there's many cycles that happen all at the same time. There's miniature cycles within your experience that interact with other people's cycles, like my experience and the people that are in my house, people that are in your neighbors, and
Yeah.
all the people listening to this. All of our cycles happen to be interacting with each other at the point of listening to this interview right now. But we have our individual cycles, we have our collective ones within our family, within our friends, within our communities, within our
Yeah.
schools. And these are all different bigger cycles that interact. And then we get into the level of towns, cities, states, countries, things like that, and then global things. And we're all working off different levels of karma.
Oh,
We
wow.
have our. That's when they say think global, act local. There's a different level when you take it to an energetic standpoint. You're trying to change the world by clearing out your own karma, and as you raise your own light, raise your own vibration, take more
Yeah.
light in, your light shines light on the darkness of the world, which causes that darkness to dissipate, and then they take that light and go and
Yeah.
go and go and go. That's how that's how it works, in my opinion.
Yeah. I
The
love
more
it,
you can
man.
be of service to others and remind them of who they are and what their purpose is on earth, the more we can clear out this nonsense and get into that golden age that every single religion and world culture prophesied.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree. Okay, so you've studied a wide range of healing modalities, from shamanism to hermetics. How do these practices complement each other, and how have they shaped your unique approach to healing others?
So Hermetics is at its core a philosophy. So it's a way of viewing the world and being able to relate to the world around me. It's like when you understand and know how to apply the rules of Hermetics, you can't break the universe, but you can bend it to your will, basically. So
Hmm.
understanding like The all is in all, everything is mental. The first principle is mentalism, as above, so below. The principle of correspondence, the principle of rhythm, polarity, gender, cause and effect, and things like that. It's
Hmm.
easy. It's much easier when you look at your own path to see how one effect had a cause, and that cause was the effect of a different cause, and so on and so forth. To be able to trace back like your wounds back to the source and things like that.
Mm.
So that's how it relates to shadow work and being able to understand that again, every cause has an effect and all these things, and the pendulum swings back and forth. Time has an ebb and a flow. You have to learn how to ride the flow and then recover in the ebbs. So you have different practices and stuff. When your own energy, your own body is ebbing, you go see a healer or you do healings in yourself to bring yourself
Hmm.
back into a flow faster. And the goal is self mastery so that you can be able to basically stay in that flow as long as possible. Now, that's for your own personal energetic stance. Understanding these principles take you to that point.
Hmm.
Now, the modalities themselves, you have to be in a good state in order to be able to do energy work for other people, because again, you can't share what you don't have.
Yeah.
So, my first energy work modality was Reiki. So I started off, I did Reiki 1 with the Jikiden lineage, and then I did level 2 and level 3 through Usui. Now, there are other different
Hmm.
lineages out there. The Mystery School has one called Insophic Ray, which I have not taken those classes yet, but I'd really like to. Um, but there's different modalities out there, and then from there you can get into there's shamanism. There's the people who are initiated shamans, people who are shamanic apprentices, shamanic practitioners, and people who are just kind of like chaos magicians throwing shit at the wall and see what happens. Um, I'm an initiated shaman in a Celtic lineage. Now that's different than say like a plant medicine server and things like that. Like my lineage
Mm.
is based more in druidic studies. With Celtic shamanism, you're initiated and then you begin to learn from there. Versus with other shamanism lineages, you study and apprentice for many many years and then you become an
And
initiated
yeah.
shaman. So mine is kind of like the bottom up or top down instead of bottom up approach.
Okay.
But I've still learned a decent amount in that as far as like just being able to work with universal energies, learning the difference between like Kabbalistic energy, shamanic energy, esoteric energies, things like that. Being able to just see, so when I'm learning more as I progress, saying, okay, well, I can tell just by the feel of this that this energy feels like this, so I know how to harness this and work this. Um, but we do a bunch of different things in the mystery school as far as like crystal magic, being able to use crystals to heal people, to do readings and things like that. I very briefly looked into tarot and runes and things like that, but it just never quite clicked with me, so I stopped studying that. But just learning different aspects of things through the school and things like that.
Hmm.
It's you don't necessarily like need. Well, I gotta take that back. I guess if you want to learn properly, you should always find a teacher, somebody who
Yeah.
knows what to do, because otherwise again you're a chaos magician and you're throwing shit at the wall to see what sticks. And when you play with magic, I mean, to quote Katy Perry, boy, you should know what you're falling for, baby. Do you dare to do this? You know the rest.
Yeah.
Don't fuck around with stuff that's bigger than you.
Yeah.
um but from there I've learned other things like Egyptian aura cleanses, different ways to set temple space in my house and in other places. Like if I go out and if I'm doing a breathwork session, I get there 30 minutes early and I set holy space basically, so that way when people come into the space they're already in that higher frequency realm basically when you walk into the studio that I'm doing it at.
Yeah.
Or if I come to your house for I do like house calls, quote unquote, for energy work. So I'll go there and be like, hey, can you give me like 10 minutes just to set my
Mm.
space real quick? So it's all about just creating things like that, and all of the modalities kind of blend together like Lincoln logs. You start off at the
Yeah.
bottom with your base stuff, like okay, we're gonna open up space here. Okay, now we're gonna set protective grids. It's the next layer, and okay, then we're
Oh
gonna
wow.
call upon our spirit guides, call upon the angels or any other beings of light that want to come down and help us. Um, any galactic beings that you're familiar with and that you've worked with before, but again, don't play around. Just like you have to have a good relationship with
Yeah.
these beings. Don't just call down like Kali Ma, because Kali Ma is going to come with her swords and fuck everything up. Um, so they all kind of build on each other that way before you get to the actual practice, whether you're doing it to yourself or doing it for somebody else. Um,
Hmm.
and then I also, I mean, being a meditation coach, I'd practice a style where there's transcendental meditation I do myself, and then the max meditation system is a mystery school created formula for meditation. It's like an hour to hour, 15-minute long journey with 5 different steps. Basically, it's like a formulaic approach to meditation that helps anybody, whether you've never meditated before, if you've been doing it your whole life. It's very accessible. Um, so no matter what it is I'm doing, whether it's energy work, meditation, or just in general, just trying to hold space for something or somebody,
Hmm.
you start off with setting your space and then go from there. So they
Yeah.
kind of they the way that I've approached spirituality and the esoteric occult aspect of energy work and things like that, it all kind of builds on each other from the ground up of, again, just protecting your space so that you can do sacred work.
Nice. I love it. Yeah, I actually bought one of these recently. Do you know anything about these tuning forks?
Very, very little, but I know enough about it. So my girlfriend does sound healings, and she does
Okay.
crystal singing bowls. She has some solfeggio pipes, some gongs, and I've talked to her
Nice.
about tuning forks. I know that they have different frequencies and things like that.
Yeah,
So
so I have the 528 hertz. You know, it's supposedly it's the frequency of love, and I don't know what it's doing. But I'm in my room, like healing myself or like healing my room. I don't know
yeah,
if it's having an effect or not, but definitely seems like my goals are like manifesting a lot easier, a lot faster.
yeah. So, I mean, having those healing frequencies around is going to affect you because, as I'm sure you've heard before, at least once in your life, like we're mostly water. So the frequencies are affecting the water within you and realigning the electrons within your charged cells to use the law of attraction basically to magnetize yourself to better situations. It's making
Mm,
things work better because you're in flow. You're
yeah.
in that positive state instead of being negatively charged.
Yeah.
So I couldn't tell you like what different frequencies mean, but I learned about that from back when I was looking into conspiracies in the very, very beginning of things. Like, there's a whole thing with the music industry. They say that like music you hear on the radio is tuned to 440,
Yep.
but music that we're supposed to hear is tuned to 432. And I always
Yep.
noticed, I get a CD from like FYE or like Sam Goody back in the day. I'm dating myself a little bit here, but like you get a CD and you play it, and then you hear the same song on the radio, and it sounds faster. Like, well, okay, maybe they want to try to squeeze in more songs and stuff like that. But then when you look at it from that other angle, it's almost like there's something happening from the big record companies to like try to get you to spend more money on the authentic version of it, or if you want to listen to it for free, you're going to listen to this distorted part that kind of like messes with your subconscious mind.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely something there to that. I've done research and heard about that as well. So you touched on it for a second there. You've brought it up a couple of times throughout this podcast, the mystery school. Can you talk
Yeah.
a little bit more about that? Like, can anyone join? Do you have to apply? That sounds like something I'd be interested in.
Yes. So I'm not a teacher. So I can't really get into like in depth about like the classes and what's taught in the classes, but I can talk about the names of the classes I've talked and things that I've learned and stuff like that. The mystery school is founded around the philosophy of Hermeticism, which is about Hermes Trismegistus,
Yeah.
which if you follow the pantheons of the gods throughout the years, it was Mercury turned in, was later reincarnated as Thoth and then
Hmm.
became Hermes Trismegistus, which means thrice great. He was three times as great as his previous successor. So Hermes
Hmm.
is the one who basically brought the knowledge in the Hermetica and the Kybalion to Earth, and Hermes taught his initiate Asclepius, and Asclepius carried on the legacy for Hermes. Um, the three initiates, who nobody truly knows who they are, were the ones who wrote the Kybalion later on, but that's where they kind of digested some of the information and took the Hermetic principles and made it more understandable.
Hmm.
Um, so as far as the principle, like what the mystery school's goal is to bring world peace through better self empowerment and knowledge of thyself. So if you are familiar with the oracle of the Temple of Delphi, like in the arches above the Temple of Delphi, it said "Temet nosce," which is Latin for "know thyself."
Hmm.
To know thyself is to know God, because again, Om Mani Padme Hum. Praise be to the jewel in the lotus. We understand that we
Hmm.
are shards of God, and to know thyself as a creator God is to know that thou art God.
Yeah.
Basically, so the mystery school is all about just learning what you are when you strip away your the illusions of self, the illusions
Yeah.
of society that you've cast upon yourself or absorbed like a sponge.
Hmm.
So we learn different tools, traditions, and practices basically in order to help us get to that state. So all of the teachers I've ever had in the mystery school say, hey, like don't believe what I teach you. Take what I've taught you, apply it, and if you like
Hmm.
what you're experiencing, come back for more. You'll
Hmm.
see by practicing, by incorporating this into your daily practices, that these things work, because you'll start to see that nature kind of is more assistant to you.
Hmm.
Like you said, that you've noticed since using the tuning fork that that things just kind of seem to flow better. It's the same kind of thing.
Hmm.
As long I do my little morning rituals every single day. I only missed once because I was terribly sick, couldn't stand up to do them. But
Hmm.
still, I mean, I have like a little prayer practice. I pray for 10, 20 minutes a day. I meditate. I was pretty bad with it for a while, but now I'm up to the point where I meditate for 2 hours a day. I wake up at the crack ass of dawn, so I get all this stuff done before like 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, that I'm
Yeah.
ready to start my day. Um, it's all discipline. You
Yeah.
have to have discipline to do these things. Not trying to sound holier than thou or anything like that. Just it's
Yeah.
taken a while to get to that point.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, there's a class that's called the Seven Ancient Mystery Schools, and again, I can't get into the details of them, but basically, there's only, I think you can find this in the mystery school website. There's only ever one mystery school that's open to the public at any time. All of them are closed. You have to
Mm.
be like tapped like a secret society. Like Skull and Bones is not a mystery school, but similar to Skull and Bones, how you have to be like tapped and then brought into the society. Most of the
Uh,
mystery schools are closed off, but ours happens to be the one that's open. So the main website for the mystery school is modernmysteryschoolinT.com, and that'll take you to
mm,
like to learn the most about like the services that are offered and the class calendars and things like that. It also
mm.
has a list of all these certified practitioners, teachers, guides, and things of that nature, and where they're located in the country. Um, so that's how I found my guide when I was living in the Philly area.
Mm.
I got lucky that my closest guide was about 25 minutes from my house. Some
Oh,
people have to
wow.
go a couple hours. But we have practitioners, guides, teachers all throughout the world. Like I was saying earlier, I went to London most recently for my training. So I mean, we have a base in Toronto, London, Tokyo, Johannesburg, South Africa, uh, Florianopolis, Brazil, and there's a pretty big community that's growing in Romania, and some of
Oh,
the people just
wow.
got to Australia. It's really all. There's over 50 countries, maybe 60 at this point that they're in. That we're in.
Wow.
So yeah, it's really all about just learning to know thyself and what it means to know thyself, and is to
Yeah.
again know who you are without those illusions. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
open to anybody. You just have to go and find your local guide, reach out, and the first step is that life activation, which I'm a practitioner who could do that. Now, 99% of the things that you do at the mystery school have to be done in person, which is
Yeah.
why I like to have those extra little tools like somatic breathwork and Reiki to help people that are not in person. For me, they're like
Hmm.
life coaching, shadow coaching, things like that. But so you have to find the local guide to you. Now, are you in Northern or Southern California?
SoCal near LA.
Okay. So I know there's a lady named Romy, Romie, and she's in LA somewhere. I can reach out to her, but she's in the LA area. She's the local guide to that area. There's a lady in Northern California named Erin who's really really cool. So there's guides all over the place, and they would
Yeah.
do your life activation and then empower thyself initiation, which is a 2 day class where you learn a lot of the basic fundamental principles and a little bit of protection spells for yourself,
Oh,
um,
wow.
as well as a lot of the foundational knowledge you need to carry on should you want to go on. Now, there's never any pressure to take more classes. It's one of those things that, like I said, if you use the tools, you're probably going to want to learn more because you'll be like, wow, this stuff really freaking works. That's really cool. I
Yeah.
want to learn more. But there's never any pressure to take any classes or anything like that. It's all just
Mm.
following your own path, and you take one step, and you're like, oh, that's cool. Take another step. Oh, that's really cool. Take another step. Okay, well, I'm not a fan of that, but then you apply it again. Okay, yeah, that is cool. I'll take another
Yeah.
step. That's kind of where I'm at. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm very open-minded, but I always take things with a healthy dose of skepticism. So I always go
Hmm.
in. Okay, yeah, I'll take the knowledge in. That's fantastic. Okay, and then I take it home, apply
Yeah.
it. Very cool. All right, when's the next class?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, modernmysteryschoolinT.com for international INT. You can find so everybody in the mystery school, once you reach the life activation practitioner level, you every year you go back for recertification. It's not mandatory, but it's just a way of kind of just refining your technique basically and making sure that you're doing everything correctly because everybody does everything the same exact way. It's been
Yeah.
passed down for thousands of years. We do the same exact thing every single time, every single way, the same way.
Yeah.
Um, so we all come together as a community, whether it's at the Tokyo base, the Canadian base, London, wherever you are, wherever you want to go for your recertification, you go, you refine your technique, and then you're put in this database so that everybody can come and say, like, hey, that person's up to date on their technique. Let's go learn from them. Or let's go take a class. Let's go get a life activation. Let's go get a
Yeah.
healing. So it's a really really cool global community of people that just really want the best, what's best for the world and for themselves, for others,
Yeah.
and just want to create more joy and life in the world,
Yeah.
love in the world.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. That sounds like exactly what I'm looking for. That's my mission, man. I really want to help people and help drive humanity forward and shift the frequency, really heal the planet, heal the world. Um, especially after the ayahuasca, and being a DJ and everything too. I think I can really impact a lot of people. So yeah, that definitely sounds like something I'm going to look into. I saw it on your website too. So you had a quote from Paulo Coelho. Did you read The Alchemist?
It's one of my favorite books. I actually
Mine too, man.
I just read another one of his called the Devil and Miss Prim. It's like I didn't
Uh,
realize it was a third in a series. I didn't read
uh,
the first two, but it's really he's a really good author.
oh yeah, I read The Alchemist. How old was I? Like 19. I read it in college, and that book changed my life. You know, I really recommend everyone read The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. And then I was watching or not a documentary. It's a movie about his life. I'm not sure if you're familiar with his life, but he started to get into all this, occult knowledge. You know, he saw like a stranger, and he knew that he had to go up to him or whatever, and and they kind of initiated him into their organization, and he started learning all this occult knowledge and stuff. Did you know about that?
I did not know.
Yeah,
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 that's
it's
cool.
crazy. Yeah.
So there was you reminded me of something. So shortly after the 2010 LSD experience, I was walking again. I was at Penn State. Excuse me. I was walking to the bus stop to take a bus to class, and normally there's a bunch of people on the street, but today it was just kind of dead. I guess they've got the bus right before me. So I'm walking down the street, and there's this guy in an orange robe that comes from the other way, and I knew nothing about Buddhist monks at the time, but this guy walks up and he meets me, and he goes, "Hello." I said, "Hey, what's up?" He goes, "I can see that within you there's a strong inner light, but currently you're dimming it. I'd like to give you something." And he reaches inside his robes and hands me like a tiny version of the Bhagavad Gita, and we talked for like 3 minutes, and then he goes, "You have to get somewhere. Hope you have a nice day." And then he disappears, and as soon as I can't see him anymore, he goes around the corner, the bus comes.
Wow, bro. Yeah, dude, that's crazy, man. Yeah, so your life is a very mystical, magical life. I can tell you're in
It,
tune. You're in tune with the stuff going on.
it sounds made up.
Yeah,
It's one of those things that you have to have the lived experience of having a mystical life to understand that this shit is real.
yeah.
There's things out there that some people listening to this are going to go, "This guy's a crackpot." Some people are going to say, "Holy shit! Like I've been through something similar to that."
Yeah, I can definitely relate to you, man. Yeah, this is awesome. Really enjoying this conversation. So can you describe how understanding and practicing attachment and detachment plays a vital role in helping individuals on their path to healing and self-discovery?
That's a very long question. Okay, so there's a myth that they say, as far as it relates to death, that it relates to several different pantheons. But they say that I believe it's Anubis upon death weighs your heart against that of a feather, and if your heart weighs more than the feather, you have too many attachments, and you're not allowed to move on to the afterlife.
Oh
So,
wow.
and I could be bastardizing that story, so pardon my crude telling of it, but basically, when people think that you have to give up all attachments and things like that, they think that means you have to go like live on a mountain, be naked, and like kill goats and stuff, and just eat off the land. But really, what it means is having attachments to outcomes, having attachments
Mm,
to emotions, having attachments to anything that's not the pure experience of you being a divine spark.
to people?
Yeah.
Mm,
So like you don't have to give up everything, but you have to understand that everything is impermanent. Like the phrase in Latin is memento mori, like remember that one day you too shall die. So no matter what, what are the things you can't escape in life? Death and taxes. You gotta pay your
yeah,
taxes, and you're gonna die.
yeah,
So by having attachments, you become too trapped in this story of life. And to paraphrase Bill Hicks from the movie Zeitgeist and from one of his stand-up specials, Bill Hicks talks about how life is a ride, and that how life is a ride, but some people get so invested in that ride that they will do anything to keep people on that ride. So they say, "Oh, well, like, what about this house and this car and these people in my life? This is my family and stuff." Yes, it's great to have those experiences, but just know that again, one day you will die. One day you will have to leave those things behind. One day they
yeah,
will die. They will have to leave you behind. So if you are able to come to terms with just something that's natural, like
yeah,
we all know everybody goes to the bathroom. Some people don't want to talk about it, but we all know that we all go to the bathroom. Same thing. We all eat, we all breathe, we all drink,
yeah,
we all do all these things. We all die, but nobody wants to talk about that. People don't want to face the fact that we will die.
yeah,
So if you are able to just understand that one simple thing, that one day you too shall die, memento mori, it helps you to be able to understand what an attachment is. It's an attachment to this life that is just a blink of the eye. It's nothing is permanent. So if you try to make things permanent, you're going to encounter those dark nights of the soul because you're holding on to what was instead of letting go and flowing into what could be and what will be.
mm-hmm. Yeah,
So in a nutshell, that's what it is. By having attachments, you hold yourself back. You keep one hand on a chain that holds you back here when really you could have let go and grabbed the next thing.
Yeah.
People are afraid, and this is, I'm not excluded from this, but oftentimes we're afraid of letting go because we view it as a sacrifice instead of a letting go. Because you have to let go so you can receive. You can't get something better if you're still holding on to the old thing. That's how you get
Mm.
hoarders.
Yeah.
There's physical hoarders, spiritual hoarders. It's
Yeah.
all the same.
Okay. Yeah, I love that. That was well said. The concept of shadow work is also intriguing. Can you explain what that entails briefly and how it can benefit individuals on their path to healing and enlightenment?
Yeah, so I am under the impression that Carl Jung is the one who created the concept of shadow work. Basically, I'll get there in a second. So someone said to me once that within spirituality, under the umbrella of spirituality, there are two teams. There's Team Love and Light and Team Spiritual Warrior. Now, there's nothing wrong with either side. It's just two sides of the same coin. The spiritual people, there's Team Love and Light, Team Spiritual Warrior. Team Love and Light are the ones that just only want to think of rainbows, fairies, unicorns, and only want to see the positive in the world, and they completely ignore that there's a shadow side. Now, the spiritual warriors are the ones that look into the darkness and bring their light into the darkness. Now, again, there's nothing wrong with either side. We need the people that are Team Love and Light to constantly be raising the vibration of the planet. We also need the spiritual warriors to clear out the shadow. Because whether you want to admit that there is a
Mm.
shadow or not, there's always a shadow. And the closer you
Yeah.
get to the light, the stronger that shadow will appear. So when it comes to the shadow, what is the shadow? The shadow are all the unrecognized and unresolved parts of yourself, the things that you don't want to look at. Like, why did you start smoking cigarettes? Why did you start drinking? Now, this is where I might lose some people. Even with like weed, like you shouldn't need to smoke weed. Yeah, it's fun, it feels good and stuff. But like,
Mm.
even with that, if you go back to when you first started smoking weed, there was probably something in your life going on that caused you to need to mask some sort of pain.
Yep.
Um, so it's dealing with those unresolved parts that you've been suppressing with substances or with experiences. Maybe it's adrenaline, but whatever it is, it's looking into that darkness and trying to figure out the root, because you can't weed your garden if you leave the roots. You can't fully leave all of your attachments behind if you're still using these medicines, whether it's healthy medicines or unhealthy
Yeah.
medicines.
Hmm.
So shadow work is the process of really just staring that shadow in the face, staring that darkness and saying, hey, we can work together. It's
Hmm.
using the alchemical process to, if I mean, alchemy back in ancient days would be to take a piece of lead and strip away through chemical processes all of the impurities and leave you with gold at the end.
Mm.
Mental alchemy, modern alchemy, is the same thing. With a terrible experience that happened, you strip away everything around it to find the gold, the positive. What can you learn from that? And maybe if it's something
Mm.
traumatic, like a terrible experience that happened to you as a child, like God forbid, like molestation or rape or something
Hmm.
like that,
Yeah.
you can, with the right amount of shadow work, you can take that experience and use it to help other people, because
Hmm.
you can deal with your own shadow, get to the point where it no longer affects you the way that it did a minute ago, an hour
Yeah.
ago, a day, week, month ago, and find that empowered state to be able to then tell other people how you did it and help them get to that point.
Yeah.
Because this is not a race to the finish. This is a we all come or we all don't. So you
Hmm.
need to help other people, and if that means you doing shadow work to overcome it yourself so that you can help other people overcome it, that's the purpose of it.
Hmm.
Shadow work is to help yourself so that you can help the world, because I've said this a couple times now, you can't share what you don't have.
Yeah. I love it. Okay. And let's also talk about real quick, let's talk about transcendental meditation.
Sure.
So how has this practice impacted your life and how do you incorporate it into your daily routine? So I know you said earlier that you sometimes you meditate for 2 hours,
Yeah.
what's going on in that process? Have you gone to different dimensions or, yeah, talk a little bit about that.
So transcendental meditation, you're only supposed to do it for 20 minutes at a time. So I do 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes at night, and then I do other different styles of meditation to fill in the gaps for the extra hour and 20 minutes. But basically, when you learn from a registered TM teacher, you are
Hmm.
given a mantra, and you have to use this mantra as part of your meditation to bring you to different depths that other meditations can bring you to, but it's a lot faster with TM. Um, Basically, if you're familiar with brain waves and how they work, we operate in a conscious state between alpha and beta brain waves. We flicker between the two, like the conscious and
Hmm.
subconscious mind. And then when you receive energy work, when people report that they fall asleep during energy work, they're slipping into theta. And there is such a thing
Hmm.
as theta healing. It's a different modality altogether. I have some friends who have done that before. So you dip out of that alpha beta into that trance like state, which is theta, And now what they say with TM, I say what they say because I've never done the scans myself, but they scan the brain for people who are doing TM, and you drop down a layer deeper into delta brainwaves. So you're breaking down deeper into the subconscious, which allows you to kind of just like break new thresholds. And when you meditate, you bring the mind to stillness. It doesn't mean to stop all thoughts. It just means like if you throw a rock into a pond, the pond will ripple, but the pond doesn't try to stop the ripples. It just lets them come to a conclusion and then returns to stillness. So when you practice this practice on a regular basis, you're able to come into that place of stillness. And if you dive deeper than theta down into delta, you can get there quicker. So that's why it only takes
Mm-hmm.
20 minutes in the practice versus maybe like a 15 minute meditation might get you calm, but if you do a 15 minutes of TM or 20 minutes of TM, it brings you to a different state.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there's tons of different celebrity testimonials on tm.org that can like give other just outside of
Yeah.
just me, some kid from Philly, but like it's been around forever. It's created by this guru named Maharishi, and
Mm.
fun fact, I learned after I got certified that my great grandmother's sister Paula used to travel around like India and Nepal with Maharishi. Um, I never met her. She passed away in the 90s, like right before, like right around the time I was born. But she used to go around with him.
Oh, wow.
Um, so apparently, the spiritual path has been in my family line for years. It's just taken a little bit for it to catch up with the generations. But
Wow.
TM is a really really cool practice. It's just a really nice way of starting the day. It's like a nice cup of coffee that doesn't affect your nerves. I mean, it doesn't
Uh-huh.
affect your nerves negatively. Um, Yeah, it's really refreshing. And there's now they just added in the last like year or two a TM app. So you have like a little timer that can pull you out. So if you fall asleep, it brings you back out with gentle noise and stuff, gives you a nice little quote and stuff like that.
Oh,
It,
okay.
it's cool. It's just a way of better reining in your own consciousness.
Mm, okay. Also, somatic release breath work. It's
Yeah.
another fascinating modality. How does this breath work technique assist individuals in releasing emotional and physical blockages? And what has been the feedback from those who have experienced it?
Yeah, so I actually need to update my website. In the last month, the creator of the modality changed it to somatic breathwork, and somatic is spelled SOMATIQ.
IQ.
I just haven't updated it yet. So somatic breathwork is different than other styles of pranayama than I've ever done before. Being a 500-hour yoga teacher, I'm trained in different styles of pranayama like Nadi Shodhana breathing, Kalabati breathing, Brahmari, things like that,
Hmm.
different styles of breathing. This is it's an embodiment experience. So basically, it's very similar to holotropic breathwork, but not nearly as intense as that. Holotropic breathwork is you're doing like a three-stage breath just in through your mouth, out through your mouth. How this works is and it's easier if you're in a session to explain, but you're using your breath to sweep away anything that feels like an impurity in your body.
Mm.
Like in the first half of a session is designed to be uncomfortable. You're breathing in just through your mouth, out through the mouth, and then after a few minutes, after about 8 to 10 minutes, you do a breath hold. So you're breathing in, and then you hold your breath at the top, and you start to feel little tinglies in your body. And my understanding is that's like the little dantian and like the energetic meridians and little mini chakras opening up, and energy just flowing through your body. That's not how they teach it, but that's my understanding of it. So you're allowing energy to move through your body while you use your breath to sweep into the corners of your body, your mind, your energetic body that feels stuck or repressed. The teacher, Stephen Jaggers, is very well known for saying that you need to express emotion. And if you don't express, you suppress. And when you suppress, you end up oppressed, repressed, and depressed.
Yep.
So by doing this technique, you're basically, scientifically, you're biologically, you're spiking your nervous system, your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. And when you encounter traumatic experiences, whether it's a minor trauma or a major trauma, it's all trauma. There's
Yeah.
no distinction between the two. It's all just how the body processes or does not process things that happen to it. Trauma is not a thing that happens; it's the body's response to what happens. So
Hmm.
you're overriding the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn responses to that traumatic experience or that suppressed trauma. Um, and in the process you allow your soma, your body, to physically shake off or to express in different ways. Now expression looks different for every person. It could be shaking your hands, shaking your feet. It could be clenching your fists, like if you're suppressing anger, like you just want to like let it out. And sometimes I've had people that like scream in the middle of a session. I've had people that start crying. I mean,
Yeah.
I'd say this, and if anybody who's been to my yoga classes hears this, I've say all the time that anger is a mask that sadness wears. So I found that you got to break through the anger to get to the sadness, and you just express all these things so that they can be released. Because once they're released, you find clarity, and once you find clarity, you can find your purpose.
Yeah.
So Somatic breathwork is a style of breathwork that allows you that safe space, even if just for an hour, to begin to chip away at the iceberg that is your emotional wound
Mm.
or wounds.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes I've even had people that start laughing like hysterically in sessions because you're suppressing joy. Sometimes we think that I'm not allowed to laugh at this thing or I'm not allowed to feel this joy. I need to just be stoic. And you got to let yourself feel, specifically
Yeah.
men, but really everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Men are taught that it's not okay to feel like you're a pussy if you
Yep.
cry. That's not cool.
That's not. Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. And yeah, I mean, breath work is something that I would like to dive more into. I don't have much experience with it, but yeah, kind of something that you were talking about there for a second. On the first day of the ayahuasca retreat was my first time really experiencing this deep breath work, and I think it was probably like an hour long, and it was that practice that you're mentioning of. Anyways, at the end of it, my arms were vibrating. They were like, it was crazy. Like they were vibrating so much. Like I'd never felt that before. It was pretty intense.
Yeah,
Uh,
this style of breathwork has kind of been my new way of quote unquote getting high on my own supply. Now that I don't do anything else, I don't have any other vices to lean on. I do this breathwork, and it kind of gives me that energetic buzz to
yeah,
to really just break through. Like to me, it feels like what it would feel like when I would smoke weed and stuff like that. Like it's just that crazy, like you said, vibration. And
yeah.
yeah, I really enjoy it. I mean, sometimes
Hmm.
I cry, sometimes I just lay there, sometimes I start laughing. It's just like, what am I going to clear up today?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So throughout your journey, you've met many people seeking healing. Can you
Mhm.
share a heartwarming or inspiring story of someone whose life was positively impacted by working with you?
So yeah, I'm actually this is in one of my testimonials on my website. It's an excerpt from a book. There's a guy that came to a ceremony once. His name is Nate Jones. He wrote like an autobiography called Permission to Create, and it's on Amazon. I bought the book obviously because he mentioned me in it. It's in a section called Transcending Death, and he basically talks about how there was this like mantra that I sang during ceremony. It's I'm not going to sing it, but the words are, "When you were born, you cried, and the world rejoiced. Live your life so that when you die, the world cries and you rejoice." And
Mm,
I sang this song during ceremony, and basically on his own journey, it took him to a place where he was able to overcome that fear of death. So
mm, I
I
love
like
it.
to think that it's a heart. I mean, I obviously in the moment I was just singing it for ceremony. It felt like the thing I was called to do, and this man decided to write about it in his book. I'm forever immortalized in a book.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I saw that on your website. So yeah, that's a Cherokee proverb, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so kind of closing it out, what is your vision for the future of your work, and can you send the listeners a final message of love and healing?
Yeah, so my vision for my work is that my long-term goal is I'd like to eventually become an international teacher with a mystery school. I'd like to learn as much as I can so that I can turn it around and help other people. I really enjoyed my studies of Kabbalah. It was a really cool way of kind of understanding the subconscious mind. And I've only taken the class once. I'd like to take it again multiple times, but just learning how to clear out subconscious programming to be able to manifest what it is you want in the world for yourself and then for others also. So my goal would be eventually to become an international teacher of several subjects, but really I really enjoyed my studies of Kabbalah.
Hmm.
And as far as leaving everybody with something, I'd say, huh, basically, life is too short to hold a grudge. Um, I when I was in college got arrested for selling weed. It got knocked down to possession, luckily, but the person who turned me in, it took me many years, but I was able to finally get to a point where I realized that he also was somebody who had been arrested for selling something, and then that person who turned him in was arrested for selling something. And it's all cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect. And I decided to finally, not for him, but for myself as well as him, forgive that. So it's important to not hold grudges. It's important to allow yourself the gift of release, because if you hold on, you'll never move forward.
Yeah,
So
wise words.
it's easier said than done, but
Yeah.
we can all get there.
Hmm. Okay, so yeah, I want to thank you so much, Steve, for meeting with me today. You have some great wisdom and great insights to share. I can tell that you have a bright future ahead of you. He may not be that active on social media and all that, but this guy is the truth. And like I said, there's a big future in line for you. I can feel it. And So I want to thank you again, and I want to thank the listeners for sticking around to the end. So please tell everyone where to find your information, and I'll also add it to the description of the video.
So on Facebook, I am the Namaste Nomad. On Instagram, I just changed it recently. It's Namaste Nomad 1111.
Hmm.
And as far as not being active, I am. That is one of my current things that I'm working on with my own shadow work is allowing myself to be more publicly faced. So in the near future, maybe by the time that you're listening to this, I'll start doing some reels and things like that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, Instagram Namaste Nomad 1111, plain Namaste Nomad on Facebook, and if you search at Akashic Librarian, I'm on YouTube. I don't post on there that often, but I
Hmm.
use it for reference points, and I'll give you my link tree to put up for everything else.
Yeah, definitely. I'll add your link tree to make it easy for everyone. So I want to thank you again. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much. Have a nice
Bye.
day.